Hi there, Xavier Easy. This is the first in a sermon series on the armor of God, the first in a four-part series. So this sermon is called "Stand Firm." So I want to start with a bit of scripture, with a proverb that I like, and this is Proverbs chapter 28, verse 1. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. So the Bible tells us to stand firm. It says it in a lot of different places. And it's important to stand firm just from a practical sense. In life, there's many different situations where fighting means standing still. For example, in the wild, there's different ways to handle like different animals if you run into them and you're unprepared. Like I'm sure maybe you've heard a lot of people. This is a popular one, like a bear. Like if you see a grizzly bear, I think you're supposed to run or like climb a tree or something like that, or curl into a ball. But if you run into a black bear, you're supposed to like make yourself look really tall to sort of intimidate the bear and make it go away. That's just an example, right? So with a gorilla, when you run into a gorilla in the wild, the way that you handle a gorilla is you stand firm. You don't flinch. You don't stand super stiff or whatnot, but you just stand relaxed as though you're not concerned. And what gorillas typically will do, if you run into them in the wild, is they'll actually charge you. They'll try to rush you and they'll run at you and they'll get within like 2 or 3 inches of your face. But if you're standing firm, like you're not concerned, even if you are, then the gorilla's going to think, this guy's like got something in his back pocket. This lady knows something that I don't know about. And it'll back up and it'll charge at you and it'll back up and it'll charge at you and it'll do that a couple times. But as long as you don't flinch, the gorilla will walk away. If you flinch, then the gorilla will rip you limb from limb because it's an 800-pound gorilla. But that's just a practical example of how standing firm could win a fight. Another example, I call this the handbrake trick. If you accidentally are speeding, you go through a speed trap or whatnot, police officers on the road can sort of be like gorillas sometimes. If you tap your brakes, when you go through a speed trap or you slam your brakes, your brake lights go off, and the car, the car jimmies a little bit, it shakes a little bit when you tap your brakes. And so that screams to whatever police officers on that speed trap, something's wrong. This person thinks that they're doing something wrong. The wicked flee when no man pursueth. I'm going to go pull them over. But if you rip your handbrake, if you pull the handbrake of a car, it causes the car to slowly decelerate without jolting, without signaling that something's wrong, without, your brake lights going off. Personally, I've avoided getting pulled over a couple times by doing that. The reason that I bring that up is because that's another example of standing firm. And I use that as an illustration to show that standing firm doesn't always mean standing still. It's not just a physically, I'm standing firm with the boots of the readiness of the gospel of peace. It's like, no, it's more of a heart posture, So I want to talk a little bit about how we stand firm, and the best place to do that is the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 15. And this is Ephesians 6:15. And your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. That's the King James, which is the best Bible version ever made. But in other versions of the Bible, it'll say the boots of readiness, founded in the gospel of peace. A mindset of readiness, of preparedness that yields and brings about peace. And I just gave a couple examples of what that can look like how that can, you can use the boots of readiness, the gospel of peace, when you're driving. You can use it, every time you run into a gorilla in the wild. I really do mean that, because we all have gorillas in the wild that try to charge us and see if we'll flinch, whether they be our own flesh, whether they be the devil and his both angelic and human, whether that just be the world, and the trials that the world throws at us. We all have our different kinds of charging gorillas, and we all have situations where we're gonna need to, we're pulling the handbrake versus tapping our brakes, where it's better that our brake lights don't go off for the glory of the kingdom. So here's a question: why should you care? Like this sermon series and this sermon on the boots of readiness founded in the gospel of peace are about spiritual warfare. A little bit broader than that, because it can be applied to just everyday life. But why be concerned about it? Why do I have to go to war? Why do I have to deal with this? It's why is this relevant to me? And I want to read a passage that I think illustrates why this is necessary for us, even though even though as believers we're going to heaven anyway. So this is Acts chapter 27, verse 40 through 44. And this is, Paul's under arrest. Surprise, surprise. He's on a boat, and they're sailing somewhere. That's the pretext to this story. And so this is verse 40. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea, and loosed the rudder band, and hoised up the mainsail to the wind, and made toward shore. And falling into a place where two seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck fast, and remained unmovable, but the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. And the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose, and commanded that they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea, and get to land, and the rest, some on boards, and some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it came to pass that they escaped all safe to land. So now you might ask, what in the world does that story have to do with, the charging gorillas and speed traps and the boots of readiness founded in the gospel of peace? Well, it's important because our ships are gonna hit rocks in life. They may look different, or but our ships are gonna run ashore sometimes. And when that happens, yes, even though if you confess that Jesus is Lord, you're going to heaven. We get presented with options as to whether are we gonna swim? Are we swimmers? Or are we gonna need a piece of the ship to float to shore? I think that during different parts of our lives, we all face, we all play different roles as to who are we when our ship hits a rock. But I think that it would behoove us to be the kind of people who are capable of swimming to shore rather than needing to coast on a plank. And I think that's another example of standing firm. I think that's another example of readiness. My ship hit a rock. Okay, I'm gonna swim. I think that by doing that, and here's another reason I strongly believe that has a lot to do with the boots of readiness found in the gospel of peace, is because when we're ready, we have peace. And when we have peace, other people have peace. Somebody sees you swimming to shore and they're like, I don't need this board. If I see them swimming, wow, swimming is an option. I don't have to flinch when gorillas charge at me. I don't have to get a ticket when I pull through a speed trap. So it's relevant, because spiritual warfare looks different for everybody. Hey, maybe you run into an actual demon and you need to stand firm in a situation like that. But I don't think that you need to have a situation like that to find use in the boots of readiness. So I want to encourage us. I want to encourage us to keep our boots on, not just so that we can handle those situations in life that test. Do we really believe that Christ is who he says he is, and do we really believe that we are who he says that we are, such that we could face down, our 800-pound gorillas? Do we really believe? And this is another passage that I really like. Do we really believe Romans 8:28 And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Because I think that makes the difference as to whether we're going to swim or we're going to coast. I don't think that Christ is going to let us drown, because we're in the vine, we're in him. But I encourage us to keep our boots on, because it allows us to be as bold as a lion, instead of looking weak or looking like frantic in situations when life tests us. I believe, and I want to close with this, that by keeping on the boots of readiness founded in the gospel of peace, it doesn't just allow us to be ready, and it doesn't just grant us peace in certain situations, but it allows us to be more than conquerors, and to spread that to the people who may need it more than us. It allows us to comfort someone just with our presence, just by standing still. It allows us to comfort someone with a smile or a hug. The boots of the readiness of the gospel of peace is a very useful tool for everybody, no matter what your faith walk looks like.